There's some interesting news on the developments of real world assets tokenization, as regulators out there are recognizing that they have to do something in this space. So there is something in the woodworks in terms of the Singaporean regulatory commercialization of these tokenized assets moving forward, which is another passion of mine, which is to do with real world assets. Real world assets is the second wave of blockchain, bringing blockchain to the mainstream. If you recall, blockchain has started out as DeFi, decentralized finance. So things like digitizing traditional financial industry onto the blockchain, borrowing, lending, setting up collateral, exchanging one digital asset for another. That was the first wave of blockchain technology, DeFi, decentralized finance. Well, ever since then, there's been growing recognition that we shouldn't just stop with decentralized finance. Why don't we think about how we can digitize other real world assets out there, physical assets, whether it's real estate or other financial instruments or tokenized treasuries or arts and collectibles or even policy documents or even basketball teams, football teams, soccer teams. You can digitize those entities and have blockchain representatives on the blockchain. And this is precisely the idea behind real world assets. I've actually set up, again, several videos in my channel that gives the educational breakdown in terms of the blockchain concept. So do look into those. But just to move on, because this is actually important news, there is growing recognition now on commercializing the real world assets onto the blockchain. And Singapore regulator, which is called Ministry Authority of Singapore, have recognized and announced new plans now to advance tokenization, because they have recognized there is a commercial need to digitize these assets, these physical assets, onto the blockchain. So they've announced new plans to set up a couple of frameworks, regulatory frameworks on the acceptance and implementation of these tokenized assets by financial institutions. I mean, this is actually very interesting, and they've actually made mention of key use cases where they're going to be putting this into effect. They say most notably in the realms of fixed income, so things like bonds, other financial instruments and asset management. These are the areas they're going to be deploying the asset tokenization, right? And they've already set up kind of a working group, which is called Project Guardian, which, is like a consortium of 40 financial institutions in Singapore, in conjunction with industry associations, international policymakers. The remit there is just to set the policy, the frameworks, to give guidance on how participants, the fintechs, are going to be responsible for implementing this in the region. And then this will be led by the participants, the investors, to start plugging into these blockchains, to start enjoying the tokenized assets as an investment vehicle. This is actually fantastic news. And it's not surprising why they are focusing on the fixed income particularly, as well as asset management. For the reason I just mentioned earlier on, we are a cheap money era, and assetizing tokenized treasury bills, for instance, which is the largest chunk of the debt market across the world, it makes sense to tokenize those. And in fact, I made a video where I made a mention that in 2022, we've reached $2 billion worth of market cap for US tokenized treasury bills. But if you add other bonds into that tokenized treasury use case onto the blockchain for investors to purchase, as you would do in the outside physical world, right? There's going to be tremendous investment to be had there, and rate of returns is going to be, fantastic. It's going to be buoyant. So I think that in Singapore, once they have this ramped up and implemented, they shouldn't just stop here in the financial arena. I think they should, as I mentioned earlier on, they should use their technology, blockchain technology, responsible for these real world assets, to digitize other types of assets, not just finance. You've got real estate. I made a video that Dubai Realtor have already struck a deal, almost $500 million worth of tokenizing luxurious Dubai real estate. And that's just with one fintech and one deal alone, right? And this is just real estate. There's other use cases out there. We shouldn't just stop at there. We should actually tokenize everything, every physical asset where we see there is a financial economic value attached to those. It doesn't make sense to tokenize a pencil. It's a commodity. It's not going to be of value, right? Because you can create millions worth of pencils. So that's pointless. That is not what I mean by digitizing an asset that has economic value. But certainly arts and collectibles, certainly prime time real estate and financial instruments, certainly other precious metals, commodities, why not, right? So the actual opportunity linked with real assets tokenization is tremendous, and is only just We're only in the start of the innings for this. It's going to grow exponentially as the technology, as and when these regulatory frameworks come to fruition, the implementation has been done. We have the market participants joining in and starting to invest in these digitalized assets in these blockchains. And it's going to grow, right? It's going to be a multi-trillion-dollar market. And in fact, major strategy consultancies have already made this prediction. So that's all I want to mention today. And certainly this fantastic news from this Singapore regulator setting up regulatory frameworks as guidelines implementation for real world assets tokenization in the region is going to be this step in the right direction. I wouldn't be surprised if the US will be forced to take a lead on this, because if not, the emerging markets are, and in fact they are taking the lead at the moment. Right. So if you've enjoyed this video, please don't forget to like, subscribe and share this video, because I regularly post some educational content as well as latest news developments on all and everything to do with Bitcoin, blockchain and indeed the future of finance. So I'll see you next time.